I'm going to deliver to you this evening 3 items, one of which is governance, one of which is tourism, and the third one is conservation. But I present this to you pretty much from my point of view, my perspective, what we've done in Botswana, the way we've looked at doing things. I came up the easy way. That's the difficult way. And the reason why I came up that way is because I can. And I think not having to conform all the time is where the difference in itself lies. I have a principle of a 3-legged pot. These legs are fixed. And keep focused on what I was saying and not the earlier jokes, please. And the first leg is politics, NGOs, user rights, ownership, etc., etc. The second leg is governance, communities, decisions, influences, and so on. And the third leg, of course, is species, conservation, and preservation. These all have to be in integrity, otherwise the result is obvious. And this is something that we've managed in Botswana, and this is something that we really wish for Africa. And as I go on, I will give you some very, very heartfelt opinion that I have on where Africa has failed, misses the point, and where we can succeed. Because I always believe that from a challenge, we should find an opportunity. However, be this as the case, I'd also like to acknowledge Gabon and Rwanda, the comments they made on Botswana earlier on. I wasn't here to hear those, but thank you very much, Gabon and Rwanda. In Botswana, we have adopted a high-value, low-impact model of tourism. And this was because we took lessons from what had happened in Kenya, for example, where we'd seen a lot of density on wildlife, and you were finding that you had more vehicles around the wildlife than you had around the vehicles. But having said that, that gentleman that was talking about Zimbabwe and his elephants, I want to tell you that 3/4 of his elephants are in Botswana. And he should come and take them back. It's not only the people of Zimbabwe that had a challenge with their former president. We'll get on to the story of elephants as we progress to this discussion. What we want to do is to hear of your visit, not see how you visited. We want to see soft footprint on Mother Earth. And that is Botswana's model. It's expensive, deliberately so, but then the service you get and the rewards from that experience, I think, are second to none. One of the things I always ask myself about Africa is, why do we always make the papers for the wrong reason? Why do we have governance issues? Should I talk about Ngandla? No, maybe not. Why do we have corruption? Why is there greed? Why is there lack of transparency? We talk to each other as brothers, but we behave differently. Our lack of achievements, our colonial masters. You know, people, those colonial masters long died, and they probably don't give a damn about us anymore. So let's move on. And this is something that I have never understood. And I'm pleased to say that Botswana was never colonized. And Africa has such an amazing landscape. It's iconic in every regard. The ecosystems, the lay of the land, is just unbelievable. It's a place that you go, you can explore, you can tramp around, you can look at so many things that you can't find on any other continent in the world. But yet, for some unknown reason, that aspect of that tourism potential is something that we mess with. And I've never understood why we should do this, and never understood really why other African countries don't appreciate the value of the natural resource. Natural resource is not just mines. But you see, we've come to learn this horrible thing called quick rewards, quick cash, quick money, at the cost of the environment, at the cost of really sustainable natural resources. It's a challenge. But how do we get out of that? How do we move on? That decision to move on is a decision that we as Africans must make. Nobody else can make that decision for us. I found it very interesting when I was looking at the statistics. For example, the 27 statistics saw an increase of 7% on visitors as opposed to the normal 4%. The Mediterranean area had 8%, Europe had 8%, Africa was at 7%. We had shown an increase. Asia Pacific 6%, the Middle East 5%, the Americas 3%. Europe has 631 million visitors per annum. 631. And Africa has 63. That in itself tells you the percentage means nothing. That tells you the percentage means nothing. What we're looking for is to turn that percentage into meaningful numbers. But that comes with a challenge. There is a challenge. And the challenge is obviously connectivity within the African continent. It's the flights, it's the infrastructure, it's the security, it's the disease, it's the corruption, it's the attitudes, it's the jealousy, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. When is enough enough? Are we going to add to this list, or are we going to erase this list and bring up a new list, which will say, you are welcome to Africa. You are welcome to Africa. You know, if my history serves me correct, it's a long time since I've been to school, I believe that the first example of Homo sapiens was in Africa. Why did they leave? What the f*** did we do wrong? Did I say that? Ladies and gentlemen, Botswana, from 2016 to 2018, we have won 19 awards. And these awards have come through. Should I say that again? And it hasn't been easy. Everybody is challenging for the same awards. But imagine if we took the Botswana model. And I'm not saying that this is the model that serves us all, but it's an example of a model. It's a model that Botswana decided was going to adopt to be different. And therein itself lies the answer, is in our difference. Though we're on one continent, we do have our differences, which we should recognize. I am not going to pretend that I can offer anybody a beach holiday, for example. I have the beach, but I don't have the sea. But these linkages are things that we really seriously need to look at and say, how do we open this continent? We can open this continent. But let me tell you, governance. Governance is the biggest challenge we have. And until such time as the get-rich-quickly syndrome disappears, we're never going to come out on top. And then we must ask ourselves, if we're going to be satisfied in playing second, third, or fourth fiddle, whichever fiddle you want to play. But the point that I'm saying here is that as visitors to the continent, we appreciate your inquisitiveness of this continent. We must now deliver on your expectations, and not the other way around, where we expect you to come through for something with us. That handout syndrome has to end. It definitely has to end, because this continent is known to be a continent which is where you deposit aid. Now, When we look at the parks that we have around us, you'll find the jostling of NGOs wanting to place themselves in respective parks. We know what that's about. I know what that's about. And I don't allow that in Botswana. And I never will allow that, because the communities need to own that resource. And Botswana need to have a benefit, a direct benefit from that resource. But if we misappropriate what we've got from that, we're going to have a huge challenge. And here's how it is. We then find that the challenge isn't amongst others. The challenge is within ourselves. And I'm going to come back to a point about the challenge in ourselves as we proceed. The cultures that Africa have are so rich, so rich. And you know, they are famous. For example, Kenya, the Maasai, they are famous. The Bushmen, the San, the Bakhalagadi, whatever we want to call them, they are famous. The Tuaregs are also famous, and so on, and I can continue to mention them. And the Zulus as well, for other reasons, as well as being for what they are. And, but seriously, you hear where I'm coming from, okay? And why wouldn't we then mirror these around this continent and have what I dream of is it's like a jigsaw puzzle which you put together, and at the end you have this wonderful collage of faces, culture, tradition, including the wildlife. But predominantly, in my case, it's the wildlife that I'm particularly interested in. One of the things that we've also got to recognize as we go forward is the reality of climate change. Climate change plays a big part on the movement of wildlife, other than politics as well. For most of us intelligent beings, I want to just say that again. For most of us intelligent beings, we know climate change is real. There are some who deny its very realness. One of the things as well that has become apparent is how we use money and politics to influence how we do sustainable tourism, sustainable development, sustainable livelihoods. Because it's a choice we've made through governance not to do the right thing. Sustainable. Even where I come from, I have to explain the word sustainable. It's not a word that is in everybody's vocabulary. But once you've got hold of it and you understand what sustainable means, it really is the basis and the fundamental value of the way forward. And it just means that we don't exploit what we have and discard it. Why am I telling you this? You know, in all our lives, throughout every sort of livelihood that we come into touch with, we find people who are wasteful, we find people who are caring, and we also find people who don't know. But there's a category of people that is more dangerous than all of these. And those who don't care, those are the ones who don't care. And you know, to come across a person who doesn't care, I don't know if it does to you what it does to me, but it burns me up inside. And I want to pursue that person. But then I realize, what's the point? That's a lost cause. Or is it a lost cause? So what have I been doing in my life? And then you turn on and you say, no, I will pursue, I will educate, I will instruct, I will encourage, I will bring you in. So that in the end, I offer you a solution. I offer you a solution, and I don't reprimand you. Reprimand is an interesting approach. And I have found that most of the time, when we're trying to achieve things, it's when people say they're going to reprimand you for something. And that reprimand in itself is where the rot begins, because you always retaliate. So when you're a conservationist, hold that thought. When you're a conservationist, I'm going to reprimand all of you today. Because you see, this is how it works. And you thought I was going to be nice to you. This is how it works. We fly here. We leave a carbon footprint in the air to come and meet. And then we leave and we fly away again. And then we go and have another meeting and we fly there. What have we achieved? Air miles. We've achieved air miles. What did we take away from the meeting? I'm not reprimanding you. I'm going to talk to you about that and say, do we not use technology now to achieve what we're trying to achieve today? When we leave this conference, when we leave here today, I hope that we will be able to touch each other in one way or another going forward and come back and say what it is that we've achieved. Because it's so easy just to leave and say, I was in Cape Town, it was great. Or wherever the conference was. And you come back and you go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then we say, oh, goodness gracious, what have we achieved? One of the things that we've done in Botswana is, in order to get the buy-in, was we had to take that bold step forward. And what we did was we instituted a hunting ban in 2013. That was one of the first things I did when I became a minister. And I didn't make a lot of friends, you can understand, but I was committed because I thought that this was the way to go. I had the good fortune of having friends who also informed me. When they thought I needed to be corrected, they didn't reprimand me, they talked to me. And I see a couple of them here. Unfortunately, Map Ives isn't here, but Derek and Beverly Joubert are here. If you could just stand up, Derek and Beverly, please. Derek and Beverly are part of Rhinos Without Borders, and we have received a sizable donation of relocation of rhinos into Botswana. Derek pledged 100, and I think we're 12 short of the 100. Am I right? About 12 short of the 100 into Botswana. This is commitment. This is to send rhinos to a safe destination. We also have Environment 360, who have also pledged 100 rhinos. Those rhinos are coming from, again, and there you go. What's wrong with the picture? But thank you for the rhinos. But what's wrong with the picture? We shouldn't have lost them in the first place, and you should be able to look after what you have. Am I getting to you what I'm trying to say? Is that governance is at the back of everything. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not deal in Botswana with any domestic or international trade of any form of trophy hunting. None at all. The total area of wildlife management area in Botswana that's reserved for wildlife is 40% of the country, 40% of the country. And 18% is for national parks and game reserves. And you can understand the challenge on land, because you have populations growing. You have Zimbabwe elephants growing in Botswana. There's a challenge, and this has to be managed. And yes, unfortunately, the truth is we're now seeing more and more human-wildlife conflict, where we've been trying to promote human-wildlife coexistence. At the last CITES meeting, which to me, to be quite honest, was a farce, I was so surprised at how everything had been predetermined by the time we got to the conference. And at that conference, I stood up and said, though you have not put elephants on Appendix 1, we will put them on Appendix 1 in Botswana. We have recently declared a former hunting concession, Derek, you'll know it, NG42, as part of Ngai National Park extension. So that joins Chobe National Park, Makgadikgadi National Park, and Ngai National Park. And this now means we have the longest migration of wildebeest and wildebeest and zebra in Africa. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I have taken up enough of your time. I just want to say a couple of things before I conclude. First of all, people ask me, how can I help? How can we help? First of all, that's a question that I find the easiest to answer. And it's simple, just do the right thing. Search your conscience. I will continue to do what I believe is right. And the difference is, you can stand up and say, it was right. But if you decide that somewhere through that journey you've decided that maybe you've made the wrong decision, please, I ask you, don't unilaterally make the decision to change. Engage with others who know and share those ideas. There's too much authoritarian type decision making in Africa when it comes to wildlife, natural resources, just too much. And that has to end. Leadership styles have to be realigned in relation to reality, in relation to sustainable tourism, sustainable development, and sustainable environment that we need. If we continue the way it is, we're going to be the losers. Mother Earth will revenge in a way that we least suspect. And we might not be around to even exchange notes on that. Sometimes I'm asked if I'm pessimistic or I'm optimistic. And I say, when I look at the science, I tend to be pessimistic. But when I'm in the company of people like yourselves, I'm optimistic. Oscar Wilde said, cynics know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. Today, this is our biggest challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister. So we're very privileged because Tshekedi has agreed to take some questions from the audience. So does anyone have any questions?
Minister Colin Bell, we learned today that the heart of the Selous Game Reserve is going to be logged. This is one of the few lion refuges in Africa where you've got more than 500 lions. They're going to take the heart of the Selous and they're going to log it, and then they're going to create a dam. Please, for humanity's sake, can we get you to engage with the Tanzanians to see if this can be stopped? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will give you my undertaking that we will engage the Tanzanians the same way as we're engaging the Angolans on their logging as well. Thank you very much. I will definitely do so. Thank you.
Another question from the audience?
Coming. Who is that? Mr. Julian Asher?
Thank you. I actually had a question about sort of one of the issues with potentially facing Botswana now. You talk about logging, but also about damming that in Angola, which might affect the Okavango Delta. Just wondering if you have any comment on that.
Very good question. Actually, no, the Americans have just passed a bill which is called Delta. and is to try and look and see how they can participate within the trying to preserve the waterways of the Delta. We have also engaged the Angolans on the Delta, and we are concerned because the amount of deforestation that's happening in Angola is quite significant. The other thing as well that they've done is from the two rivers that are flowing down, one being the Quito, the other one being the Kavango, they've also dug some channels about 150 kilometers long where water's gone that way, and they're using that as a mode of transport. The challenge we have with Angola, of course, is because they had so many mines that it's safer to go on those channels than to drive, although they've done some demining. But yeah, that's it, that's exactly when I talk about governance. This is exactly the thing that I'm talking about. You can make a decision to do the right thing, and it's so easy just to make that decision to do the right thing. But the motivation should not be for greed to have done the wrong thing. And that is a culture that we need to come out of. Fortunately, in Botswana, we have very, very little effects of corruption and so on, and we really work hard at keeping corruption out, and everything on allocation of our wildlife concessions, etc., is transparent. Thank you.
Can we have one more question?
Who's first? We'll go this way up here. Theme tune. There we go. And if you state your name before you do the question.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, thank you very much. I know on behalf of everybody, your approach is totally refreshing. My name is Alex Mavros. I'm from Zimbabwe. When our elephants come back to our country, please will you come with them? I think it's abundantly aware that you are blessed with a great country, which you said you've dedicated 40% of it to wildlife conservation. You also have a population of 2.25 million people, I believe. Zimbabwe, we have 13% of our land masses covered by national park, and we have a population of 16 million people. Your initiatives of instituting a high-value, low-impact system is really just revolutionary, and it's totally left field and brilliant, and I wish you continued success with it. What advice or what insight would you have to how Zimbabwe could handle, hopefully, the new opportunity that we see as a great tourist destination?
Thank you. I think one of the things that I should also acknowledge, which I haven't done, was our previous leadership of the country, our previous presidents in Botswana. The immediate president who's just stepped down after his 10-year term was a very big conservationist. He is also on the board of Conservation International. That was President Khama, who happened to be my older brother. It seems to runs in the family as far as conservation goes. I'll just tell it as it is. Conservation started with our first president, who was our father. But that aside, you have to start somewhere. And the start is now. And, as long as you embed it into your policies, you'll be successful. If you don't embed it in your policies, then you're going to have a challenge. Secondly, the other thing we've done in Botswana in a big way is we've included the communities. And I actually omitted to talk about this, but that's one of the reasons why we don't burn ivory. And I'll tell you why. If we protect the animal, we protect the whole animal. We don't want just the ivory protected. We want the whole elephant protected. Now, if you say to communities, you must look after elephants, but we're going to burn the ivory for the media, what message are you sending? Then the communities will say, you're a fool. I'm going to sell what you're burning for money. You've lost the plot. I don't want to get too close on that because it's close to a few situations that I'm aware of. So, we need to be very careful that the communities are on board and see the benefit, because they are your eyes on the ground. And, and that for that very, very reason, the population of elephants in Botswana at the moment, at this particular time, is almost 200,000 elephants of an African total of 445,000. So you see the numbers that we're having to manage. So it's a challenge. It is a challenge. But embed it in your policies, embed it into your constitution, into your laws, put it in there. If it's not embedded, it's going to be fair weather and it's a gray area, and people can do as and when what they want to. And that's what you've seen happen. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Please give a big round of applause and stand on your feet for Minister Tshekedi Khama. Thank you.